What would you do if the whole world stopped, and someone gave you 1 hour to change nothing, but remember everything? Every year, the town holds its breath at the same minute. Not midnight. Not dawn. 2:17 in the dark, when even crickets nod off and the last diner light should be flickering to sleep. Clocks choke on that minute. Second hands lean toward it and stop like they've found a cliff's edge. Phones freeze. Microwaves blink and then give up. The old courthouse clock on Main points its stiff fingers at 2:17 a.m. and refuses to move. We sell the story on t-shirts and mugs. We call it folklore to make it friendly. Newcomers smile. Tourists pose under the clock with mock fright faces. But folks born here learn to sleep through it. Don't jinx it, my dad would say, like time was a skittish horse. This year I couldn't sleep. Summer storm. Air thick as syrup. I was at my kitchen table with a shoe box of photographs I kept promising to sort. Dad in a baseball cap, jaw like carved oak. Mom with that half-smile she used when she was right and wanted to be polite about it. My sister in a tutu that made her look like a pink dandelion. The wall clock hiccuped. A tiny sound, but I felt it in my ribs. The second hand jerked and then hung there, red tip kissing the 12. My phone stopped at the same breath. The refrigerator hummed thin to a thread and snapped. The house settled into a silence so complete I heard my own pulse tell me I was still here. I went to the window. Main Street looked like a postcard. A bus was mid-turn, driver's mouth open, halfway through a yawn. Rain hung in the streetlight, each drop a bead on a clear string that didn't know gravity anymore. A cat leapt, paws tucked, tail arched, forever suspended over a trash can lid that would never clang. I should have been scared. I wasn't. I felt 12 again, convinced that if I asked the right question, the universe would give me a decent answer. I pulled on boots. I opened the door. The rain didn't fall. It crowded close and never touched. When I waved my arm I carved a tunnel through pearls, and the hole held its shape like I'd stirred jello and it refused to jiggle. I laughed. The sound went nowhere. It just hung, warm and small, then folded itself away. That's when I saw movement. Down by the diner, beside the neon open that wasn't pulsing, something slid between frozen figures with the ease of water. Quick. Careful. Not a car. Not a trick of eyes. A figure in a hooded coat, color shifting between fire engine red and deep lake blue whenever it passed a lamp. It touched a wind chime. The chime answered with a polite click that seemed embarrassed to be heard. I called out, too loud in a world without noise. Hey! The hood paused. Turned. I couldn't see a face. Only the tilt of a head that said, well now, it took you long enough. The thing lifted a hand in greeting and beckoned me closer, as if I were late to an appointment I'd made years ago. I stepped off my porch into the held rain, boots whispering against a puddle that didn't ripple. Each footfall left a small bruise in the air, blue, then gone. The figure waited under the courthouse clock. The hands stuck at our town's favorite pose. 2:17. The minute hand like an arrow pointing at a secret. You're not supposed to exist, I said. The hooded figure laughed, the sound as thin as paper between fingers. Neither is this, it said, and tapped the frozen second hand with a gloved knuckle. Up close, the figure was a boy. Maybe 12. Maybe the kind of 12 that never advances a grade. Freckles ghosting a nose. Eyes quick and older than mine. The coat didn't pick a color, it flickered between pepper red and midnight blue, stitched at the cuffs with tiny silver marks like constellations someone sewed by hand and patience. You can see me, he said, pleased and tired in the same breath. Hard to miss. I kept my hands in my pockets. Every instinct said don't touch the rain, don't touch the people held mid-step, don't touch the night. Got a name? He considered the idea, as if names were hats he tried on in different towns. Second, he said. Not the kind after first. The kind you breathe. Second, I repeated. It fit the way a good hammer fits your palm. What are you? A hinge, he said. A helper. The oil between two stubborn parts. He tipped his chin toward the street, where a cyclist was frozen with his lips puckered to whistle. Also a janitor. People drop seconds everywhere. I sweep what they shed. He pulled from his coat a tiny tin pan and a brush with bristles clear as raindrops. He knelt at the curb and swept. At first it looked like nonsense. Then the pan caught the light. He'd gathered a dust made of tiny summers and saved laughs, specks that felt like warm ice clinking in tea. He poured them into a pouch at his belt. The pouch didn't sag. What happens if you don't come? I asked. He shrugged. Time gums up. Chews the same bite forever. Starts grinding teeth. Then it breaks, and when time breaks, everything floods. Folks call it bad luck. It's just a busted pipe. Why 2:17? Because it's kind, he said. Late enough most folks sleep. Early enough that the ones awake need the quiet. He studied me. You're awake a lot. Lately. I almost said why. I didn't. The word Dad sat where my tongue could find it and heard it. He touched the courthouse post with 2 fingers. The metal hummed like a cello note. No one bowed. Want a gift? He asked. What kind? An hour, he said. Held aside. No one else's but yours. You can't change what's honest. You can visit it without stealing. Stealing what? People, he said. Kisses. Answers. Doorways you never opened. I don't let folks rearrange their own lives while I'm on shift. I thought of the shoe box on my table. The photo with Dad's laugh caught sideways, as if the camera had been shy. Okay, I said. I'll take the hour. Second smiled with a small relief that made him look almost younger. Walk with me then. When you find what you're brave enough to keep, tell me to stop. Stop what? Time, he said, tapping his chest. Properly. Not the clumsy kind. My kind. We passed the diner window. Inside, Mrs. Alvarez held a tray of cinnamon rolls forever an inch from the counter. Steam curled and forgot how to cool. A teenager with an armful of textbooks was mid-trip on the welcome mat, face destined to wince and then laugh. A couple kissed on the stool near the jukebox, eyes closed, the open sign above them frozen between O and P, like it couldn't decide whether to tell the truth. You always look like a kid? I asked. On these nights, he said. We matched the town's most honest memory of patience. That's a lot for 12. He shrugged at the whole sky. Work starts early when your boss is time. We turned down Cedar, the street that leads to the little park with the pond shaped like a question mark. The swings were empty, chains still as stitches. A frog hovered mid-plop, legs tucked, crown of a leaf balanced between splash and slide. Storm clouds layered like pages in a gray book. My dad taught me to fish here, I said, and the words came out without permission. He liked the line best. Said a line over water looked like a sentence that could make sense if you waited. Second nodded like fishermen were a language he spoke. Tell me his name. Tom. Good, Second said softly. Short, strong. Call him. Call him how? Say the part of him your mouth remembers. I sat on the bench with the brass plaque for Loretta J. Fletcher, who loved sunsets and strawberry pie. The wood was colder than it had any right to be. He hummed, I said. Off key. Always the same 3 notes. Never quite made it to the 4th. He hummed when he patched tires, when he scraped paint, when he burned the toast and laughed like he meant to. Keep going. He had hands that knew work. The kind that looked like a map of the county. He could make a napkin into a lily and pretend it was magic. He sneezed so loud the neighbors blessed him through the fence. Second lifted his palm like a conductor asking the brass to hush. Stop. Across the pond, a man sat on the opposite bench where afternoon sun always hit square. Ranger's cap. Jacket with an elbow patch that never caught a seam right. Thermos held with both hands like it contained a good secret. He squinted toward the water, mouth half open on a sound I didn't need ears to name. Dad. I stood so fast the bench squealed. Second's hand found my sleeve, firm and kind at once. Rule 1, he said. You can't cross what's honest. This is memory, not clay. What is this? I asked. A trick? A kindness, he said. You get an hour to stand near what you love. Minus the parts that break it. You don't get to haul him out of the past like a net full of fish. But you get to sit in the same weather. Will he see me? In the exact way he once did. Dad turned his head like someone had just come up the path late and friendly. He lifted his hand in a half wave. Maybe he waved at me on some morning I'd stuffed into a drawer and forgot. Maybe at Mrs. Fletcher with her pie. Maybe at that frog who couldn't decide about the leaf. I told him about the roof leak I still can't find. About the stew that turned into soup and almost forgave me. About the toolbox I'd cleaned, the little brush in the bottom drawer meant for reels that I used to make the sockets shine. About how Mom puts his cap on the newel post like a lighthouse. About how I keep humming those 3 wrong notes like they'll open a door if I arrange them just right. He didn't answer. That wasn't the deal. He sipped. He squinted. He hummed. The hour felt like a hand under my ribs, steadying the shake I'd been hiding from myself. Second swept seconds under the trash can, along the fence rail, from the cracks in the sidewalk where stories get caught like leaves. He kept my company without stepping on it. When I ran out of sentences, the silence we made together didn't bite. Will I remember this? I asked. Not like a photo, he said. Like a scar that doesn't hurt. We left the pond because the hour wanted to stretch its legs. Dad stayed where he belonged, the moment closing smooth as a librarian's palm on a book she loves. Not slammed. Not snatched. Saved. Why our town? I asked as we walked. Why any? All towns deserve a hinge, Second said. Some learn where it fits. Yours had a clockmaker with patience. He glanced up Main, toward the courthouse face that rules our days. Old Halvorson tried it first when a baby was breathing too fast and the doctor was stuck behind a broken truck. The road straightened for just long enough. The headlights learned to blink again. The boy lived. Folk said we owed that minute, so we pay it back each year. Why 217? I asked, though I liked hearing the answer change shape and stay true. Because that boy grew up and fell for a girl who worked nights at the dairy, Second said, smile hiding in the corner of his mouth. She could slip out at 217 and meet him by the loading dock. They learned to kiss while the town practiced being gentle. He said it so plain I felt my eyes sting without shame. The rain stayed delicate and patient above us. A mailbox kept a letter halfway through its slot like it had changed its mind about news. The open sign at the diner was stuck between choices and looked relieved. Do you mess up? I asked. Sometimes I leave a second in the wrong pocket, he said. A man finds a laugh he didn't earn. A woman loses her place in a story and never finds it again. I fix what I can. The rest turns into legend folks swear happened to a cousin's friend. We crossed Walnut. The laundromat held a basket midair between a kid and his mom. The kid stared at the ceiling with the expression children wear when they've just asked, why is everything shaped like something else? The mom's mouth was already forming an answer she'd want to keep. People ever try to cheat? I asked. They do, he said. They want to slide a ring onto a finger before a yes, pull a note from a pocket before a goodbye, turn a head to look at them instead of at the truth. He watched me the way good teachers do, checking whether I was still listening to myself. You aren't here for that. No, I said. I'm here to remember how to breathe. He seemed satisfied. He tilted his head like birds do when they hear a change in wind. Something else is awake. I heard it then, the way you hear a storm first with your skin. Not footsteps. Not wheels. A drag. A correction. A wrongness going about its business with confidence. What is it? A whatnot, he said, like the word tasted bad. It eats loose seconds and leaves sticky. People slip on sticky and blame luck. Can you? Work to do, he said, and touched the pouch at his belt like a sheriff might check his badge. Stay behind me. You can watch. You can't wave. Deal, I said, and believed it. It came up from the mill road, where asphalt sags in summer and smells like a memory of tar. It didn't have a shape I liked. It was ripples where stillness should be, a stain moving through a clean shirt. It carried its own hush that made our hush feel loud. Seconds coat dimmed to midnight. His freckles looked like fresh stars. He drew from his pocket not a blade, not a badge, but a key, brass and simple, the kind that wins a music box that's been on a grandmother's dresser longer than anyone can prove. The whatnot listened with its edges. I could feel it tasting the air for fallen seconds, tongues of shadow probing the cracks between raindrops that weren't falling. It swelled when it found residue from the park, where I'd let words shake loose from my hands. Second wound the key once. The click rang bright, clean as a spoon on crystal. The sound slid under the whatnot like wire pulled under a root. The stain recoiled. What is it really? I whispered. A habit, he said. Made hungry. The whatnot pushed again, confident. Second wound twice, 3 times. The note changed from tin to bell, from bell to a tone I felt in my teeth. My stomach remembered church basements. My bones remembered train tracks. The stain folded in on itself, shivered, then flowed toward the curb, found a storm drain, and poured through with a sound like regret. The grate rattled once, satisfied. Second exhaled and the white of his breath took longer than breath to fade. He slipped the key away, brushed the curb, and scooped a palmful of glitter that hadn't been swallowed. That wasn't supposed to exist, I said, voice calm because my legs were doing enough shaking for the both of us. Lots of things aren't, he said. And still we tidy. He cocked his head at the courthouse. I realized he didn't look at the clock to know it, he listened for the town's heartbeat settling back into a rhythm. Your hour's running thin. Pick your last place. I didn't think long. I pointed at the diner. Through the glass, Mrs. Alvarez's tray of cinnamon rolls hovered a breath above the counter, a crown she was about to bestow on somebody's morning. The air in there would smell like butter and sugar and coffee that forgives you. Good choice, he said. Endings deserve sweetness. We slipped through the diner door without rattling the bell. Time kept the manners of the place but forgot the sound. Heat held my face like a welcome. Flour trailed the air in a soft storm. A radio by the pie case was locked on a sax note that wanted to turn the corner and couldn't. Mrs. Alvarez had a streak of dough on her cheekbone like a war stripe for gentle battles. Her hands were the shape of comfort. A booth by the window waited with 2 coffee mugs caught mid-steam, a newspaper frozen at a headline that would be wrong again by noon. Say what you want to keep, Second said. I closed my eyes. The way Dad split a cinnamon roll with his thumbs. How he pushed the better half across the table and pretended I didn't notice. The heat on my face, the sugar on my lip, the quiet that comes when you don't need the right words, just the right company. Second touched the counter with 2 gloved fingers and swept something I couldn't see into his pan. He nodded at the corner booth. Sit. Listen. I slid into the vinyl. The seat remembered belt buckles and gossip and wedding toasts made at sunrise. The place hummed around me despite itself. Across the table, a man sat down who looked like me through a few more winters. He had flour on his knuckles and a good day in his eyes. "Hey," he said, voice comfortable as a worn jacket. "You're going to be okay." "You sure?" I asked. "Nope," he said, grinning. "But I'll be here anyway." "Who are you?" "The part of you that keeps promises," he said. "The one that saves a seat and orders coffee for the late arrival." We didn't touch. Rules were rules. He broke a roll in half with careful thumbs, pushed the better piece my way, and for a second outside any clock I tasted heat and sugar and something that wasn't forgiveness so much as permission to keep going. Second cleared his throat. The sound barely disturbed the flour. "Time." I stood. The booth exhaled. The radio decided its note. The tray of rolls hovered a whisper nearer the counter. "What happens when it all restarts?" I asked. "You take the hour with you," he said. "Fold it small, keep it where your coat hangs. It won't make you bulletproof. It'll make you patient." "And you?" He looked toward the door like a man checking weather. "I walk. Ferries. School buses. Places with rhythm. I nap where wheels sing." I swallowed around the lump kindness leaves. "I don't want it to end." "I know," he said, not unkind. "Endings don't ask. They watch to see what you learned." He tilted his head at the courthouse, listening to a pulse I couldn't hear. "Tell me when." I listened to my breathing. To the storm waiting to fall. To the part of me that had been a clenched fist for months. I waited until that fist uncurled a little. "Now," I said. The second hand hopped like a bird deciding, then went. Rain fell all at once, beads remembering gravity with a shy clatter before settling back into proper patter. The diner bell found its voice and chimed like nothing unusual had happened to it in its whole metal life. The neon sign finished choosing and lit open with pride. The bus on Main finished its turn. The cat landed and the trash lid finally clanged. Sound layered back over the town, thunder far off, tires on wet pavement, someone upstairs sneezing a sneeze my dad would have blessed from the porch. I stood in the square while the world put itself away. People blinked and rubbed their eyes, none of them aware that a minute had sat down in the middle of the road and asked to be admired. "Mrs. Alvarez set the tray down, frowned at the clock for no reason she could name, and dusted her cheek clean, dough stripe gone to a thumbprint she won't think about later. Second leaned his ear to the courthouse face, palm on the post, listening like a mechanic satisfied with an engine's idle. He looked smaller, or maybe the world had grown back around him and made him right-sized again. "Thank you," I said. "You kept the rules," he said. "You didn't steal." "I wanted to," I admitted. "That's human. Wanting and doing run on different clocks." He straightened, checked the street like a crossing guard for a kindergarten of seconds. "You'll be all right. Will I see you next year?" "If you're awake," he said. "If the town still needs sweeping. If I'm not stuck teaching a ferry to keep good time." I stuck out my hand because hugs felt too loud for what we'd made. He shook it, firm, cool glove, quick grin. Then he walked away quick between waking people, pausing only to tap the diner window so Mrs. Alvarez would check the oven one heartbeat earlier than she might have, saving a tray from turning too brown. At the park gate he glanced toward the pond just as a frog kicked off and the leaf finally slid. He reached the mill road, turned once to cup his hand around his mouth. "Tell your mom the cap on the newel post is a good lighthouse," he called. "I will," I said, and believed it. What was the first thing you fixed? I asked, because I needed one question to carry me home. He thought. Rain stitched the town back together. A broken promise, he said. Took 12 years. Worth it. He rounded the corner and was gone in the ordinary way people go when they've got a route and a purpose and no need for applause. I walked home through a regular storm. My phone leapt ahead to where it thought it should be. The kitchen clock caught up, proud. I set the shoe box on the table and took out Dad in his cap. I pressed my thumb to the curled corner. It lay flat under the weight of my hand. Then I hummed those 3 wrong notes, soft, off-key, faithful. They didn't make a tune. They made a room. Somewhere in that room sat a bench and a thermos and a man who had taught me that a line over water looks like a sentence you will understand if you are patient. I let the hour I'd been given fold itself small and live where I could reach it when the world ran fast. Outside, the town's clocks minded their business. Inside, I did too.